I have to tell you that being Superwoman is so overrated. Like, it seemed not that long ago, we were wearing this cape and we were doing everything. We were proud of that. At least I was proud of that. And I am just, if you knew what happened behind the scenes before we started recording this episode, you would say, why is she doing that? Because it's just too much. Listen, this is Anne Marie, host of About This Life. About This Life is a show when we take a look at our belief system and what we value. Maybe some of those things need to change. Maybe there are mindsets that need to shift a little bit. When they do shift, we find our truer, authentic selves. With that in mind, I am over the moon excited today because I have two guests. My first guest is Mika Newton. She is creator, founder, Zenmi Sound, the Zenmi Sound. And I'm going to let her tell us about that at the end. Sound therapist business. And she's getting her certification, but I'm going to keep that a secret from for right now. So, hi, Mika.
Hi, Emery. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. I am blessed today to have a second guest with me, Trisheena. Let me slow down. Let me calm the nerves down just a little bit because we're going to get this right. Trisheena Bolakale, the
Yeah.
Purple Flowers Network. Wow.
Yeah.
If that isn't a mystery, I don't know what is. And I'll let you explain what that is as well. We are gathered, bonded together by a mutual friend, a visionary, a creator, and her name is Camry Red. She has brought us together under this project called Dear Black Woman. Hold on to
Yes.
your seats. Hold on to your seats. Mika, Cammy called you, contacted you. Why did you say
Yes.
yes?
Well, let me tell you, I didn't say yes right away. So I was invited to the meeting where everyone, was on a Zoom call discussing being in the anthology, all the dates that we had to hit, the deadlines, things like that. So, as part of her leadership team here in Atlanta, I thought she just had me on here to kind of like, maybe take notes and kind of like just witness what was happening. So after the call, I said, Cami, I think I was on the call by accident. I didn't plan on writing anything for the anthology. And she was like, oh, you're writing something for this anthology. You have a story to tell and you're going to tell it. And I was like, you know what? I do. I was scared to write my story, but she encouraged me and I said yes because it's time.
It's time. And
It's
you just
time.
revealed what the anthology is all about, what Dear Black Woman is all about. It comes out in your words. It is story. It is our
Mhm.
story. And it's the Black woman all grown up. But there's
Yeah.
something special, Trishina, and that is we're talking to a little girl. Why did you say yes?
It was a no-brainer for me actually when I saw the page online. I made a decision last year that I was going to be healing out loud, that I needed to heal out loud for my own wellness. And as soon as I saw the advertisement, I said, "Oh, okay, yes, this is the direction where I'm being led," because I would not have seen it if it were not for me. So that made me say yes. And I've been kind of claiming my place as an author, as a writer. And this was the perfect opportunity for me to expand that.
Absolutely. I have to say something about myself. I'm just like, do I want all my business out there? I
Right.
was just like, then everybody is
Hmm.
to know. And I happen to come from a culture, a Caribbean culture, where, what's funny about the Caribbean culture, they always say, keep your business inside the house, but then
Absolutely.
everybody already knows your business.
Right. Right.
For me, I decided to join this project because at first it was about healing myself. I never intended for anything to be public, not in a million years. But then after I progress on this continuum and find healing, you realize, this might help somebody. This
Mhm.
might help that person over there. This might help. How do you see writing letters? And this is what the project is, writing letters to the younger self. How in the world can that be impactful? How?
I think it can be impactful because I think sometimes we live in the silo and we think that people don't experience things that we've experienced. We think we're the only ones. I think reading someone else's story helps to validate what you've been through and what you've been feeling. It helps to normalize some things that you feel like it's okay to feel a certain way or your story isn't necessarily one that's I don't know, an anomaly, that it happens to a lot of people. I
Yeah.
think it helps to release some shame behind some of the things that you may have gone through when others are courageous enough to share their side of the story. So I think it can help in a myriad of ways.
What are we trying to normalize though? And Trisheena, are you still there? You still with us? You
Yes,
hear us?
I'm
Okay.
here. Did my video go out?
Yes.
Yeah.
We're
Oh,
seeing, well, yes, we're seeing this beautiful picture. But let me
okay.
continue with Mika while you come back to us. And that is,
Yeah.
you mentioned normalizing issues.
Yeah.
Why do we want to normalize things? I mean, you said a little bit about it in terms of
Yeah.
helping someone, but why?
I think we want to normalize exercising our voice. I think we want to normalize giving truth to what's happened to us. I think we want to normalize not keeping things behind closed doors, especially those things that are harmful to keep secret. I think I would like to normalize, calling a thing and not
Mm.
being ashamed, to call it out as it is. I was raised similarly where you kept things to yourself. You may have had family members that were allowed to be around you, be like, don't be around that person. We all know why, but that person is still allowed to be around you. But you can't say anything about it. You can't talk about it. I am now at the point where I'm calling things out. I'm calling a thing a thing.
Calling a thing a thing. Hey, Trishina, welcome back. You know,
Thank you.
Mika's absolutely, absolutely, girl. We took off the Superwoman cape. We put it down. It's on the
Hmm.
side. We're just having a conversation.
That's
I
right.
don't know what happened to my video. Is this thing? I didn't even realize I was out.
But that picture was beautiful that came up
Yes.
while you were out.
I
Thank
want
you.
to pose the question of some things that I'm hearing Mika talk about, and that is calling a thing and
Mhm.
shame. Has shame ever played a role in your life? I like to say there's this word that we throw around, trauma.
Hmm.
And
Mhm.
for a while, let me tell you about an old mindset. Old mindset is I used to think trauma was just certain people, certain group of people. And then I think to myself, well, oh my goodness, aren't we all undergoing some sort of trauma? So
At all
speak
times.
all at all times. We have experienced trauma in one way or another, especially being Black women. So
Hmm.
here's the question, Trishina. That is, has shame ever played a place in your life, whether growing up or now? Did you have an encounter or a brush with shame?
Yes, I think shame is a really has a really big part in my story and why it was so difficult for me to come to grips with the things that I've been through until I was 38 years old, until only a few years ago. things happen, and I would, if nobody could see it, feel it, touch it, it was easy to brush under the rug and act like it didn't happen. And then when those things come full circle, because you can't get over your trauma until you're sitting at the table with it, right? So when those things come full circle, it's like, wow, I really tried to ignore this because I was ashamed. There's one thing that I always talk about, and I'm very vocal about my story and my healing. As a poet, as an artist, I'm very vocal about it, but not reporting sexual abuse because of shame. Because people believe me? Would you believe me if I told you that I allowed this person to do this to me? Even me framing it as I allowed this person
Allowed.
to do this to me.
Wow.
And I'm a mother. I'm a master's degree holder. I'm a professional person. Would you believe that I allowed this person to enter my space for him to do this to me? So it was just easier to brush under the rug and pretend like it never happened. But I met a woman last 2 years ago who she said something to me that was so simple and profound. She said, the age of secrecy is done. And when
Mm.
she said that to me, it brought all of my shame to the forefront, and I had to let it go and heal from it anyway.
Wow, wow. That is such a powerful statement, in that you said so much. I wonder, ladies, what is it around the idea of allow? Why do we allow, why do we allow pain in?
I want to
I
say, oh, I'm sorry.
no, go
I
ahead,
want to
Trisheena.
I want to say for me, it's this idea that I carry this cape of superwoman, of supermom. So when things happen, especially negative things happen, it's my own limited thinking that's saying, "Oh, you allowed this to happen," or not even
Mhm.
giving myself the grace of saying you are in a vulnerable state. You can't be perfect. You can't be supermom all the time. You can't be superwoman all the time, and you have this certain vulnerability, and it's due to trauma that there was this vulnerability. It was trauma caused me to view myself differently. So I think that idea that I allowed those certain things, and even that, it wasn't even a conscientious decision to do so. It was
Right.
my vulnerable state, my vulnerable emotional state that allowed those negative, detrimental people into my space.
Absolutely. I hear you, sister. I understand. Mika, how would you
Um,
respond?
for me, it was I found out in writing my letter is that I was raised to be a people pleaser. I was raised to make sure other people were comfortable. I was raised to be pleasant and nice and not to stir up trouble. So I think, especially as a little girl, when all you know is to be good and to not cause trouble and to be quiet, things happen to you and you don't. And when those things happen to you, talking about it is causing trouble and it goes against everything that you were raised to be. And I think in that way, that's the reason I was allowing things to happen to me. It wasn't something that was conscious. It was something that was ingrained in me as I was coming up.
As we were raised, and it's almost as if, well, not almost, let's take that word out. Somebody took away our voice. Taking away our voice took away
Mhm.
our power for self-advocacy. And so now we're living in a vulnerable state, accepting things that we no longer or shouldn't accept. There comes a time in our lives when we say, no, I'm not doing this anymore. And the whole trajectory of your life can change. I say that in terms of my own experience. When I made the decision, I'm walking away from the marriage.
Mm.
after years and years, almost 30 years,
Wow.
I came to a tipping point. I came to a point where I said, no more. And I didn't know to name it at the time, but what I was doing is this little girl was saying, you know, something had to change here because we're not spending the rest of our lives here.
Yeah.
What's your tipping point? Any one of you can go first. What's your tipping point?
That's a good question.
What was your tipping point?
I went through my tipping point just last year. Um, and it was strange. I was walking around depressed for at least 2 or 3 years and didn't realize it. I was blaming it on everything else. I thought maybe it was menopause or, I'm not, not exercising enough. I'm like, I have everything that I want basically. And, my family's good. I'm healthy. Why am I not happy with that?
Mhm.
So last year, my tipping point was it was after Christmas break and it was time to go back to work. And I knew that I couldn't walk into that building, into that office, and be around my coworkers and keep that mask on. I was like exhausted with putting on a front, like I was happy. I was exhausted with not being my full self for 8 to 10 hours a day. I was just tired and I took a leave of absence from work. And I used those 6 months to really think about what I wanted, um,
Mhm.
why I wasn't happy, what would make me happy, what was my purpose. Like I had all these questions for myself. Um, at first, I thought I was going through a midlife crisis, but I'm like, I
Mhm.
reframed it. I'm like, it's my midlife awakening. I'm
Yes.
awakening. I am
Good.
taking I am taking control. I'm figuring it out. I'm taking this time and I'm going to figure it out. And it was the most difficult 6 months of my life, but it was also the most beautiful 6 months of my life because I just evolved so much and I learned so much about myself in that time. Stuff that I already knew, but I was finally ready to face and deal with because I had had enough of the pretending.
Enough of the pretending and time to be authentic. I liken
Yeah.
it like childbirth. Like
Yeah.
you're pregnant with something and nobody in their right mind wants to go through childbirth. That is a whole lot of pain,
It's right.
unlike anything else on the earth. But once you have gone through the childbirth and a human being comes out, there is beauty, there is love, and there is blessing in that experience.
Yeah.
So, Trishina, e- elaborate more on the tipping point. Elaborate more and on how did you come to know that you needed to change?
My tipping point came 2 years ago. I was in therapy at the time, and my therapist wanted me to confront my mom. Me and my mom had a very
Mhm.
tumultuous back and forth relationship. And I was her caregiver at the time. And when I was little, she told me I was ugly, plain out like that. She laughed at me. She called me ugly. And the thing about that was, I never believed her, which caused me to not trust myself,
Mm.
because that's your mom. You're supposed to believe what your mom says. And I just simply didn't believe her. So that just led to me living a life with all this confusion about my own confidence, about who I was as a person, and about what I should expect from my mom. My tipping point came when I confronted her. My therapist wanted me to confront her. And she laughed. And she said, "It's not my fault you're ugly. You're going to be like that till the day you die." And I realized my mom may have never seen something and recognized it as beautiful about their own child. So I had to learn to stop seeking validation from her and to look inward. and just trust myself and to trust in the trust that I had for myself, which is a very shaky kind of grounds because
Yeah.
you want to, it's really weird
Yeah.
when you believe something and you don't trust yourself for believing it. So that was my tipping point, and from that point forward, I really shifted my perspective on how she thought about me. She lived a very broken, sad life, and that was her outcome. That was, what she could come up with as far as me being her daughter. So it really taught me to stop seeking validation from her, but it also showed me how much validation I sought from other people and from the world. And I really learned to look inward and fall in love with myself all over again and trust the love that I found in myself.
Queen. First of all, you're beautiful.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank
Queen.
Thank
Queen.
you.
You are beautiful.
I
And that was
appreciate
so
that.
brave, Trisheena, to confront your mother. That was so brave.
Thank you.
I have to tell you, and there are two ideas that's flowing through my head, and hopefully I can remember both of them. Sometimes I have these moments. And that is, I recall one of them right now. You tapped into the idea that we carry our ancestors' pain.
Yeah.
Your mom came to that space for a reason. And sometimes we know why, sometimes we don't. But whoever influenced, impacted, shaped your mom caused her to come to this space. And it's almost like she's passing on some sort of internal hurt. How many of us are carrying our ancestors' pain, whether or not it's in our lineage, our
Oh, yeah.
family, our bloodline, or, people who crossed our paths? What do you think about that?
I think that we absolutely do. And it would be impossible to think that even our grandmothers or our great grandmothers and further back, that something isn't carried through us. That Jan Van Zandt calls it the pathology, that we carry this in our
Mhm.
DNA even. And when I realized, and I found this out, years ago, that, my grandmother carried me because my mom, I was in my mom's, ovaries already. So, all that stuff, we're connected to all these generations in so many ways we know nothing about, why we do certain things or why we feel certain ways. We're absolutely affected. The beautiful part is someone decided they wanted to go in a different direction. For
Yeah.
my family, it's me. I decided I wanted to go in a different direction so that my daughter didn't have to carry that on, and she was raised in a much different way than I was. So you are making a different decision for you, even though
Yes.
you were raised by your mother. You are making another decision, for yourself. So I just think it's beautiful, and we're all at different points in our lives, but we still made the decision to go a different way, to change the course.
Yes. I always like to homage to Sankofa, which mentally and emotionally, I had to jump across a couple generations to find the peace to bring it to my current day and my current life,
Mm.
because of how my mom was raised, because of how her side of the family kind of believes things and carries things out. I had to jump across generations and bring that love and
Mhm.
peace to the forefront, and I very happily and proudly do that. My mother never really expressed pride in her heritage. I am proudly African. So there's a lot of different
Yes.
facets there that I had to pick up with no guidance, with no support, and I did it, and I'm doing it, and I'm able to show my children a different way. I'm able to tell them they're beautiful for no reason. You are beautiful because
Yes.
you woke up today. You are beautiful
Yes.
without lipstick, without makeup. You are beautiful because you say so. And I'm able to do that and spread that love to them and teach them how to love themselves because that's a skill I had to learn as an adult. When my mother said that to me, I sat at the table with a piece of lined paper and I
Mhm.
had to write down all the things that I loved about myself. And all I could put on that paper was tears. That was it. So I said, if I can't figure out what I love about me, I'm going to decide what I love. And I made a list of things that I loved and who I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. And it really brought so much joy to my everyday, because now, and this is when we get to talk about the purple flowers, that lends
Yes.
itself to what the
Yes.
purple flowers is about. Finding joy in the little things and being happy just because you want to be, not because someone tells you that you can be, because that, I feel like, was the missing link in my generation, and I am able to change the direction and change the course for that, which brings me joy in and of itself.
I
You
was
get
going
to
to say to
choose.
see your to see your child, to see your children exude a confidence that you only wish you had when you were growing up. It My heart jumps for joy that she was able to
Yes.
experience a childhood in which she loved herself. She knew she was loved. She knew she could do anything that she wanted to. It got to the point where I had to start telling her, when people told my daughter, she's grown now, but when she was little, people would be like, "Oh my goodness, you're so cute, Ashley." She'd be like, "I know." And I'm like, "Sweetheart, you got to say thank you." It's like, but she knew she was cute because her mama told her on a regular
Yes.
basis.
Oh, my bad. That was the second thing. And that is what we can now believe about our authentic selves is the way in which we can love ourselves. It does not mean it's the absence or we're pushing anybody away. No, no, no. It means that is how you learn to love yourself. And in many ways, this is what the book is about. Dear Black Woman, it is about the realization of us as grown women loving ourselves and reconciling with the little girl. So we have a lot of stories. Some of our stories, I can say one might be about abandonment, one might be domestic violence, one might be addiction. What are some of the other stories, whether it's your own or any others that you can think of?
I realized in writing my
Abuse,
story,
self-sabotage.
Okay.
I know, I was
Mika,
just
I
don't
throwing
you go
things out
ahead?
there.
Yeah, abuse and
yeah,
self-sabotage. Yes, those are things, that's the weight of things that we carry. Imposter syndrome is another one. And
yeah.
then Mika, you were getting ready to say,
For me, it was, I realized that my anxiety started way earlier than I thought it is. I thought it was something I just developed, but I grew up, I was like an adult at a very early age, just making sure that everybody was okay all the time. So for me, it was realizing that my anxiety had um, there was, I can name it, and I can show where it started for me, whereas I just thought it's something that I developed. I thought something was wrong with me, but I'm like, it was in me. It was like put into me. It was put on me as a small child. So for me, it was dealing with, my mental health, and how it was derived. But yeah, being an adult as a child is a huge weight to carry. And but at the same time, I didn't have a choice and I didn't have a voice. Um, so yeah, so my story, I thought at first that maybe my story wasn't important enough because it wasn't
mhm,
necessarily like physical abuse, but or addiction. Even though I did have a father who was an addict, but he wasn't in my home. But it was just not being able to be a child in a way, and not being
yeah,
able to be free, and free to express myself, free to be a child, free to be noisy, to take up space. I was just like this all the time, like in a in my
Mhm.
little corner of the world, just not taking up space. So it's taken me a lot of years to be okay with taking up space.
Absolutely, it does. And it speaks to forming our relationships because
Yeah.
that's what happens when we select partners or choose who we are going to be with.
Hmm.
This book, Dear Black Woman, is an opportunity to bring our own healing to the forefront, to offer women some insight in terms of how we did it. There's 20 of us in the book, by the way,
Yeah.
for our listeners.
Wow. Yes.
Oh my God, the story, you will find your life somewhere in the
Somewhere.
story, somewhere in the
Absolutely.
story. And all 20 of us come from different walks of life. For example, I'm an educator. I have this podcast about this life. I have an online Facebook group called Becoming Enough. And
Mm.
Becoming Enough speaks to the journey and its invitation where we go through what it is to heal. And one of my fan crush is Dr. Thema Bryant. I like to call her
I
name
love
out.
her.
I love that woman. And I
Yes.
got to meet her at my church. She came to speak and I met her in person. And so to talk with her, and one of the things I love about her, besides her being a psychologist, a therapist, a minister, she's also a poet and a dancer. I
Mm.
do spoken word and I lead some kids and adults too through that process so they can find their heart space again. So I'm just enamored with her. And those are some of the things that I do. Trisheena, why don't you go first? Tell us about the purple flowers. What do you do?
The purple flowers is it's a community in progress. So I am building community of people that are invested in the wellness of Black women. As far as work is concerned, I've been a case manager, social worker, and working with adults who have disabilities for all of my career. I'm trained as a teacher. I have my teaching degree. However, being an advocate that's the direction that life has pulled me into, advocating for people who need a voice. But the purple flowers is in growth. So if I can just tell you what the purple flowers means a little bit,
Yes,
when I was 8 years
absolutely.
old, and my mother said what she said to me, she and they likened me to Celie. I went to the
From the color
library and I
purple.
from the color
The color
purple.
purple.
I went to the library and took the book out and read it at 8 years old. And
Mm,
that book has always had a significant place in my life because of my experience with it. Now, I didn't associate it with purple flowers at 8 years old, not at all. But it wasn't until 2 years ago, I did a monologue called the Brown Mama Monologues, where I told my story about my broken relationship with my mom. And in that book, it's like you always have to see the purple flowers. That was a statement by
mm,
Alice Walker when
Mhm.
she said, "I think it pisses God off if you see the color purple in a field and don't notice it." And
Mhm.
it just brought everything kind of full circle for me. Like my life has been about pulling joy from the most insignificant places, pulling joy from places where people might not otherwise see joy. It's living your life in a romantic way by yourself. So the purple flowers
yes.
have just been such a significant placement in my life for the past few years, and I'm developing a community of women who are of people and who are invested in the wellness of Black women, because there are so many people with stories like you said that are not ready to tell it yet. My
Mhm.
audience, they're not ready to come to grips with their story yet. It doesn't matter who I talk to. If I start telling my story, people are like, wow, you are so brave.
Yes.
Wow, oh my goodness, wow. And I'm like, you can live through me. I'll be your
Mhm.
voice if you need me to. When I did my monologue, an 85-year-old woman was waiting for me when I got
Hmm.
off the stage, and she said, you told my story. I was a little
Wow.
girl and you told my story with tears running down her face. And it was just like, wow, I'm doing the right thing. So that's what we're doing. Purple Flowers Network, we're building community, and supporting each other and loving each other, because that's really what it's all about.
You know what's
That's
rising
beautiful.
up in my spirit right now is like a retreat.
And that's what,
Because that's what's rising up in my spirit,
Mm-hmm.
because I think from a holistic woman point of view, the way that I use spoken word, the way that poetry is like an art form. It taps into the heart space. When I
Mm-hmm.
teach analysis, which I do on a daily basis, when I teach reading and writing, you're looking at critical thinking that comes from your head. But when you are into poetry, that comes from your heart.
Mm-hmm.
That heart space becomes sacred space. What I hear the commonality is finding your voice, raising your voice. Because it's holistic, Mika, it infuses, it embodies the physical as
Mm-hmm.
well as the mental and the emotional. So in
Right.
Zenmi sound, because we're looking at somatic healing when we talk
Mm-hmm.
about this experience, what does that word even mean? And why is sound therapy important to us in terms of our well-being?
Sound therapy has the power to reset that nervous system. And that's what we strive to do on a regular basis. We're operating, most of us, on a regular basis. We're in fight or flight, we're in
Mm,
survival mode, we're scrapping, we're at work, we're in the hustle and the bustle. And it's about intentional rest, it's about an intentional reset. We may go to bed at night, but are we truly resting when we go to bed at night? I know so many people
mm,
that toss and turn and wake up and still don't feel rested. But the idea that frequency and vibrations and sound can reset that nervous system from fight or flight to rest and digest. And it's in that state that our body is able to do what it was created to do, which is to restore itself, to revitalize itself, to heal itself. When you're sick with the flu and you go to the doctor, besides getting plenty of fluid, he tells you to do what? Get plenty of rest. That's the state we need to be in for our body to do what it was meant to do. So I use sound, and I create spaces for women to rest. My catchphrase is rest is the foundation for healing.
yes.
I create safe spaces for women to come together, to rest, to be. There's so many of us who don't get to just be and be poured into. It's one of my favorite modalities as far as therapies, because the receiver doesn't have to do anything. They're literally receiving and they're laying there, and I'm pouring into you. And it's my pleasure to do that. I call myself the corporate dropout. I've come from the corporate retail world. I've been a buyer and merchandiser and product developer. And it was last year that I realized that this is what I wanted to do. It helped me through my depression and my anxiety last year. It was the one thing that helped quiet my mind and allowed me to get rest. Because when you have anxiety and you're ruminating, it's like
Right.
it's just going nonstop. And that helped to settle me. So I bought some bowls for myself, and I was like, I wonder if it works if I play for me. And it did, because I had to concentrate on the melodies and concentrate on the playing and the frequencies
Mhm.
that I made. And I was like, okay, God, I asked you to show me what my purpose was. I asked you, I told you that I wanted to do something that spoke to people, that poured into people, that helped me make an impact in people's
Mhm.
lives. And I think this is it. I know this is it. I feel it. And it took my depression and my anxiety, and it took that time being away from everything to to have that drop in from him, to be guided on this path, and that's what I'm doing now. So, and I love
Yes.
every minute of it.
yes,
And
that's so important.
Yeah, it
it is
is.
it is important, and I want to say, because you're being modest, because you're about to get certified in terms of stretch. I want
Yes.
to be a witness to that. because every week I go get stretched.
Oh,
And
wow.
for people who don't know what it is, in my area it's called Stretch Med. They don't pay me,
Okay.
but I promote it because here's the thing. When I am worked on, and what stretch means is assisted stretching. So
Assisted
basically, we know
stretching.
we can stretch ourselves, but it's different when somebody is helping you. And
Yeah.
there are movements that you guys make
Yes.
that sometimes, depending on the person who's working on me, there's this one guy. Mm-mm-mm. I swear I cry.
Mm.
I cry when he does. And I'm not crying from this is painful. I'm crying because he's releasing
Leasing.
something in my body. And I'm like, hallelujah.
Yes. The body keeps score. The body keeps score. And we
Yes.
hold so much in our muscles, in our bones. Absolutely.
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 Yes, we do. Ladies, it has been a pleasure to speak with you, to talk with you, to come together in this form of fashion around this collective project, Dear Black Woman. 20
Yes.
of us are involved in the project. We are here to almost like give a collective hug
Yeah.
to people, to Black and brown women, and say to you, girl, first of all, you're beautiful.
Yes.
There's
Yes.
healing is available to you.
Yes.
This is how some of the things that we did it. And in the different ways and parts of sharing our journey, you might find some healing for yourself, letting go of those limiting beliefs and embracing who you are meant to be, aligned with spirit, aligned with God.
Yes.
So, amen.
Absolutely. Amen.
Amen.
Yes, this is Anne Marie. I've got to thank Cami Red for being the brainchild, bringing us together
Absolutely.
for this. So, Cami Red, we are shouting you out. We thank you for the experience we are going through, and we want to, in our collective communities, to really change the world and impact who we are and bring about healing. This is Anne Marie, host of About This Life, where we are changing our lives one day at a time. Take care, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank